The Krafton CEO did an interview this week, and like, it's a little pandering, but also the stuff that he says in this interview, it's kind of like, fuck yeah. Like, this guy seems to have a good head on his shoulder. It's a longer quote, but Krafton recently acquired Tango Software Tango GameWorks from Microsoft. And so they were talking to him about it. I'm kind of just going to read through all this because it's nice to see a CEO say these things, I think, especially in the given climate of the video game world. Quote, we wanted to maintain their legacy. Although they did not have a big success in their games, we saw many creatives worth pursuing. That's why we wanted to work with that organization. Kim, what is his full name? Changhan Kim? Let's go with that. I guess is how you would pronounce that.
There's going to be a lot of clips today, JP.
I can't say that name. What? That's Oof. His last name's Kim. I didn't want to, I was going to butcher it. Anyways, he says that Krafton wanted to acquire as many people as possible from Tango to continue their legacy, with the studio being shuttered by Microsoft in May. Quote, because Hi-Fi Rush fans really want to see sequels, we negotiated with Tango GameWorks parent company, Microsoft, to acquire that IP as well. According to Kim, the sudden shutdown of Tango GameWorks left employees anxious, which is pushing Krafton to complete the deal as soon as possible. We wanted to make sure the deal happened fast to minimize the gap in their career. He adds, Kim says the scale and complexity of the conglomerate like Microsoft meant it was difficult to move quickly, but it noted the Xbox marker was open to the sale of both the studio and its IP. He goes, they ask him about Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. Said if we were to acquire all IPs, I think it's going to complicate the deal too much. Krafton is a pretty big company, but Microsoft is very complicated. We want to help the team continue developing their games, but especially Hi-Fi Rush. When I think about our fans, I think what they really care about is Hi-Fi Rush sequels. He did.
That was Mr. Oof.
Yeah, that was Mr. Oof said that. He did, however, describe the purchase as not too expensive or too cheap either. We cannot really translate the volume into money. It's more about the significance, he adds. The dollar amount was really not important to Microsoft. Goes on to talk about the size. He says, I think a minimum of 100 people is what we're aiming for. We have to scale it around that size. That's the minimum requirement to continue developing the franchise. Or perhaps they'll need a bigger team. We haven't decided on that, but we don't plan to reduce the size of that team at all. They have to work on new projects as well, so there is great possibility the team will scale up even further. He goes on to talk about, he claims Krafton will strive to take risks to produce titles that feel innovative rather than derivative. We're trying to increase our portfolio lineup, and Tango GameWorks comes into play there. Noting that many of Tango's previous games may not have broken even. We can't acquire, here's where it gets good. This is super long-winded, but here's where it gets, this was the important part that I took away from this. We can't acquire Tango GameWorks based on their financials or their numbers, right? We don't think Hi-Fi Rush 2 is going to make us money, to be frank, but it's part of our attempt. We have to keep trying to develop games in the spirit of challenge taking. Tango GameWorks are creative. They want to try something new, and we want to do more of that. Making video games is really a hit or miss industry, and that is risk taking. But having more project lineups is actually a way to mitigate risk because one of them might work out. When pressed on whether Hi-Fi Rush was a commercial success for Microsoft, Kim says he doesn't know exactly how much the game earned, but when considering production costs, he felt it might not have delivered a substantial return. Quote, did it add a lot of money to Microsoft? That might not be the case, he says. I'm not saying I don't know how much they made. That is just my guess, but the IP itself was very fresh and featured new types of gameplay. I know it's not a game a lot of studios were making, and we have to keep trying that approach. He suggested that corporations like Krafton shouldn't aspire to deliver an infinite procession of chart-topping hits, largely because that's a wildly unrealistic aim. Instead, he feels the goal should be to, quote, break even while nurturing creativity. Just recoup the production costs, please, is what I say. But that in itself is a pretty big challenge. If you're doing that, you might actually land a big hit. I don't trust people who say, oh, this is going to be a hit. I want someone who can try something new. The big hit shouldn't be your goal. If you think about it that way, Hi-Fi Rush might have brought a little bit of a minus in terms of the financials, but it's a team that should be encouraged to create something new and continue their journey. I want to have more teams like that under our umbrella. Kind of wild to hear a CEO say that in 2024, to be honest. Like,
exponential
it
feels like everything is
growth is always the goal, it seems.
Everything's like a sequel or remake or aiming to like Rami was saying, trying to be Fortnite. And there's like not enough new IP.
Yeah.
Or yeah, like fresh ideas. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
It's the chasing thing, you know. Like I remember this is years ago, and I'm not going to identify like who or what, but like I was in a meeting with somebody who works at a. You know what? Let's just keep it vaguer than that because there's not that many options.
Sure. You were in a meeting.
I was working with somebody. I was in a meeting, and this was a person with lots of money, and quite some influence in the games industry. And we were talking about like original games, right? Like coming up with original games, and like this is a good person, genuinely a good person in the games industry, and effectively this. The conclusion of the conversation was effectively, yes, we would love more creative games that are like Fall Guys. And that's kind of how the games industry works at the moment, right? Like Fall Guys was the big thing back then, right?
Sure.
Like it was flash in the pan, like did super well. And it is always that at the moment. It's always that. Like I can't tell you like how distressing it is from the games industry to sit in a meeting with publishers. I represent a lot of developers, right? Like in conversations with publishers. And right now, the thing that we keep hearing is like, what audience can you prove? It's like, fuckers, your job is to bring the audience. Like we work for fucking years on a game. You bring in $200,000. And then you call it, and this is not against Devolver, but like just to use Devolver as an example, right? You call it a Devolver game. It ain't a fucking Devolver game. You're the fucking publisher.
Yeah.
And I think I might have gone on this round before, but like I fucking hate that nobody knows developer names anymore. Everything is publisher names. Everybody's like an Annapurna game. Who the fuck made that game then?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
The publishers want to hide that because then the audience is bind to the publisher, which is easier for them. But if the publisher is no longer bringing the audience, if they want the safety before they invest, then what the fuck is the point of a publisher? They're just weird bags of money. Like, this whole thing is turning into the weirdest shit right now. Like, I'll be really honest, the games industry, the indie side of the games industry is in a fucking weird spot right now. Like,
I like that feedback a lot. That's really no, because I joined a publisher, Midwest Games recently. I am their audience director, which isn't a real title, but basically I'm helping them choose which projects get funded and help with influencer relations and so on.
Yeah.
Really good group of folks. And it's good to hear that because I'll be able to bring like that sort of not feedback, but like knowledge to the table. You know, because like I want to help bring good games out and get the right people doing them. You know, from like underrepresented areas. That's kind of the goal of it. So yeah, it's sidebar there, but that's cool. It's not cool that's happening, but it's cool that like that was a good piece of information for me.
Totally.
That kind of thing, right? You join a publisher, right? And now you basically get like a little bit of power over what gets made and what doesn't get made. And like the and I don't know if you have that specific power, right? But like I also work for publishers, right? I also work as a scout. I work on all the sides of the games industry. Like that's kind of my job is like spider in the web, right? Like I just connect things to things. The thing is, right now, the way things get funded is like so defensive. So nobody's taking risk anymore. Like I miss fucking EA from like a decade ago. People always talk shit about EA. They give us Mirror's Edge and Dead Space in like a year time. That was fire. That was great. Like I want that back. I want that back where people just say like, this is a crazy ass idea. Let's do it. Right? I've not seen this before. Let's do it. I personally love this. Let's do it. Right? Like the whole like cult of personality thing sucks, but at least with a cult of personality, you get somebody who makes choices. And right now, everything is numbers, everything is data, everything. I get games to publish and they're like, how many wish lists do you have? I'm like, fuck are you talking about? Make the wish lists. We're making the game. You make the wish list. What the fuck why do I have to prove 20,000 wish lists to sign my video? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the whole thing is so broken. And then in the end, we make the game. We're being held hostage by the fact that we don't have the money to make the game. And then at the end of it, it's like a fucking. I'll just pick another. It's a Raw Fury game. Like, yo, what?
Sure.
Like, you want to help the games industry right now? You're a gamer. Like, go figure out what the developer of your favorite game was. You know, not the publisher. What the developer was. Like, who the fuck made Call of the Lamb? Right? Like,
yeah, that happened with. For me personally, that happened with Focus Entertainment and Saber Interactive. When Space Marine 2 came out, I was like, God, Focus Interactive nailed it. Those are the publishers.
Nailed it.
I felt like a jackass because that Focus Interactive is who handled all of the influencer conversations.
Yeah.
There's an ambulance. They're coming to get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Focus Interactive was who I interfaced with. And so I was like, oh, yeah, those
They're
are the
watching
devs.
me.
Yeah, those
They're
are the
watching me
devs.
get worked up. They're like, let's send the ambulance over already. Like, this might be necessary.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we can go two different ways here. They're both not great, but I'm going to use what Rami said here. We can talk about Square admitting that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy XVI Profits, quote, did not meet expectations. That was in a financial results briefing that was held in May and finally made public this past week. Or we could talk about EA, who where was this said? The Publishers Investor Day 2024, where EA Andrew Wilson had the quote, AI is at the very core of our business. And that got taken for a ride. So choose your own adventure here.
Talking about take you for a ride. Have you guys checked out Marvel's Capcom 2 in the Marvel collection and faced against the Wazzler?
I don't want to fight the Wazzler. I don't want to fight him. He's too good. He's too good. He'll be at Twitch Rivals, I think, with
with
Maximilian, dude. He's too talented.